Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming to the program author Rick Tabor, and he is the author of Children of the Scroll. Before I bring in today's guest, a quick reminder that selected interviews are available at our website, as well as on major platforms like Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and many more. Rick, how are you?
I'm great. How about you, Don?
Good. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
I'm a scientist, polymer scientist turned writer, something I've wanted to do my whole career. And here at the end of my scientific career, I've decided that it would be fun to pursue that passion that I have for fictional writing.
So tell us about your book.
The book is called Children of the Scroll, and it is the result of what would happen if you threw an Indiana Jones movie and a Mission Impossible movie into a blender. What you'd got to be a supernatural, action-packed smoothie that pits the forces of good against the forces of evil with a lighted fuse moving quickly towards the dynamite. It's action-packed, moves quickly, and has a lot of colorful, interesting characters.
Now, who did you write your book for specifically? Who's your target audience here?
Basically geeks or nerds, folks that like science, they like information, they like the supernatural, they like fantasy, they like these things. And so it's also 18 and above. There is some racy stuff in there, some romance. So that's part of the interest and part of the book. Anybody that's a geek or a nerd, they're definitely going to love this book.
So could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you would say runs throughout your book?
You know, I didn't consciously set out to create a central message, but as the story progressed, I realized that without that message, the story wouldn't even exist. I believe, and this is my personal beliefs here, I believe that our Creator has given us the free will to choose love or hatred. And the result is that our free will choices bear the fruit of what that is in our hearts, resulting in good or evil. Just like our hearts, the creation scroll at the center of this story bears the fruit of its user's intentions. And so, depending upon who's holding the scroll, is how the scroll behaves. So the message there is woven into the DNA of the story and the characters that are children of the scroll.
So if you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
First of all, families are worth working and fighting for, and I'm not going to limit it to one here. Second, we all deserve second chances. Even though the rabbi, for example, who is one of the central characters, has messed up his life and let down his congregation, he deserved a second chance, just like you and I do, because we all make mistakes. And finally, evil is real, it exists in the world, and it's showing itself daily in the actions of the men and women around us.
Now, if you were asked to compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
Well, I haven't ever read a book. I've read a lot of books, and I haven't ever read a book that is exactly like this one. This book is the result of what you would get if you could throw an Indiana Jones movie and a Mission Impossible movie together in a blender. You get this supernatural, action-packed smoothie that pits the forces of good against evil with a lighted fuse moving quickly towards the dynamite. It's going to be that kind of a book. And I mean, you know, if I could compare, those would be the two comparisons I would make.
So can you tell us briefly about some of the characters in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kirkus Reviews gave the book a review, and I'm going to quote it. In Tabor's debut fantasy novel, a colorful cast of characters seeks a magic scroll that can resurrect the dead, unquote. I feel like I found a talent, basically. I thought about that a lot, and I agree. Those were some of the most fun parts to create as an author. Colorful, imaginative, striking characters. Let me name one of them at least. Eva Fisher is the seeker of archaeological artifacts sort of like an evil Indiana Jones. She's looking for artifacts that have supernatural powers for use by an evil Israeli defense systems company for use as weapons. So that's one colorful character. Anatoly Dezhnyov is a Russian drug dealer who's ended up in a Moscow prison with horrific consequences. Ultimately, he continues his life as a drug dealer in Chicago and begins to find people who don't want to be found. And Legion is another one of the evil guys. He's a truly evil golem, which is a person made of mud and turned into life by the scroll. And he's got some very malintent going on.
So was there anything from your own life that you put into these characters?
I think all I put from my personal hopes and dreams for the love that can be found in a family, into the Newman family, the mom, the dad, Brian, the sister, and then how each member of the family was willing to do anything for the other to help them survive without giving away the ending. Yeah, do anything for your family.
So was there a character or scene perhaps that you could say is your favorite?
The ending was definitely my favorite scene. There were so many interesting characters in the book and moving parts towards the end, and so many possibilities that it honestly was super time consuming and difficult to put them all together into one grand finale that was packed with action and tension and death and a truly final resolution one way or the other. And then to hear my readers say, hey, that was the best ending to a book that I've read in a very long time. This happened on a beta reader call with the other 9 beta readers nodding enthusiastically and agreeing with them. And so I was super pumped by the ending as well. And it seems like other people were as well.
What was your inspiration for this book?
Inspiration for the book came about a year before I started the book, when my 11-year-old daughter at that time and I were driving at dusk. And we drove up to an intersection with a stop sign where an old woman rose up from a crouch in the culvert as we approached. She looked really spooky in the light of the dusk. And I told my daughter in my best horror movie voice that the woman was the Mud Woman. And she was looking for children to eat who had stayed out too late. She punched me in the arm, but apparently she's still scared of the dark, which I sort of feel a little bit bad about. But after thinking about it, the concept was a little too close to Stephen King's It. So I morphed it into Lilith, the mom of the family of the Children of the Scroll.
Now, you've written both fiction and nonfiction, polymer, science, patents, all kinds of things. Is there a common driving force, would you say, between these two different styles?
Obviously, science fiction is quite different from writing patents and chapters in polymer science books, or scientific articles for that matter. But developing solutions for technical problems and creative writing both require that creativity at the core. And every supervisor that I ever had provided the feedback that I was the most creative person they'd ever met, or, hey, you're definitely a very creative problem solver. This creative core, combined with attention to detail that I learned in research and development, and knowing how to get my facts correct, together put together a story that is technically accurate, while at the same time bringing fictional twists and turns that are believable.
So did your environment or upbringing perhaps play any major role in your writing?
Yeah. So my dad was in the Air Force when I was up until almost high school. And so we moved all over the country. We even spent 3 years in England. And this created a sense of adventure in me and a desire to explore whenever I went on vacations or even business trips, just to learn more about other places and people. And I learned that people in different places have different cultures and customs, but that we all seek, a sense of belonging. I also found that the personalities of different people that I talked to in all these travels was just fascinating. And I'm certain that these experiences were very strong influences in my writing.
So what can you tell us about this genre and why you decided to write in this genre?
My genre is definitely the thriller genre. A few of my favorite authors are Dan Brown, Michael Crichton, and Stephen King. I love writing in this genre because there are so many different types of thrillers: romance, murder, horror, technology, religious, supernatural, military, and even superhero thrillers, just to name a few. And I've decided that what I like to do is pick 4 or 5 of these different types of thrillers, again, throw them into a blender and flip the switch. And while I'm at it, I want to make the characters as absolutely interesting as possible and add them into the blender. And at the end of the process, I want to end up with a story that nobody's ever heard before and a roller coaster ride that they never imagined was possible in a book.
So what's been your most rewarding experience since publishing your book?
I would say that this box came to my door on December the 3rd, 2024. And opening that box, seeing the very first copy of my book in print, holding it in my hands and thinking, you did it. You wrote a book, an entire complete book, and you published it. I think that was my most rewarding experience so far as an author. I even have a photo of that moment that my wife took, and I've got this satisfied, proud smile on my face, almost like a father holding a newborn baby.
So how would you describe your writing style?
I've got a long list of written writing rules that help me focus and harness this crazy imagination that I've got into a readable story. But I found my muse in Stephen King's perhaps only non-fictional book, which is called On Writing. Early last year, I read this book twice in 1 month, and it was so impactful. His style is to create a set of characters that you care very deeply about. Then he throws them into a horror situation, with the most important part of this being that the characters must react true to their nature. In other words, Stephen King is a pantser, someone who flies by the seat of their pants. He doesn't use a pre-planned plot prior to the beginning of the writing process. And that's sort of like me. I'm a pantser. I enjoy creating colorful characters, and then perhaps characters that you care deeply about and are rooting for in the end, whatever that end might be.
Now, your characters, are they pure fiction, or do you draw from people you know in real life?
I think it's a mixture of both. I guess for the good guys, I have the appearance of a real person in mind that I admire when I'm describing how that person looks in the story, but I change the name, obviously, to protect the innocent. This makes the good guys seem more normal and palatable to the reader, in my opinion, and makes you care about them more, I think. Sometimes I think I make up the evil characters based on how they might have become so evil in the first place. And I use that to create the bad guys.
So, in your opinion, who should buy your book?
Well, first of all, I think that every employee of Netflix should buy and read this book, since that's my dream, to have the book on Netflix. But seriously, this book was written specifically targeting geeks and nerds who are looking for a fresh, new kind of fantasy thriller with characters that'll make you shudder, laugh out loud, and cheer onward. If this is you, don't miss out. Get a copy of this book on the way today.
Do you have a website?
I do. It's www.ricktabor.com, no spaces. And I'm always adding new photos and updates, so swing by for interesting and fun content.
And could you spell your name for us, please?
Sure, it's Ricktabor, Rick Tabor.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Rick Tabor, and he is the author of Children of the Scroll. Rick, thanks very much for being with us today.
Hey, my pleasure, Don. Nice talking to you by phone.
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of The Author Show. Go out there, buy the book today, and please share this interview with your friends so they too have the opportunity to discover our guests and their work. The Author Show can be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com. And whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books to read, The Author Show is a great place to start. Check us daily as we continue to introduce wonderful authors of very interesting books on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.